Hi guys, I'm Irene. This is Perpetually Paperback, and I'm here doing my best books of 2020. Okay, so here are the best books that I read all year. These were just absolutely outstanding, every single one of them. They all not necessarily took me by surprise. A couple of them really did, but most of them I expected to be very, very good. They're in no particular order. I honestly couldn't possibly do an order of these of best to worst. But I'm just going to go ahead and start from the very beginning. So the first book on this list is one that I talked about quite a bit. I did a video earlier in the year, and it is The Black Flamingo by Dean Atta. So this is actually a YA novel. So that was the first surprise. I never expected to like a YA novel this much. It was outstanding. Also, this is just like, good job. Books have been getting really beautiful. But anyway, so this is actually a novel told in verse about a man finding kind of his true identity through the arts, essentially, and through this drag character that he decides to call the Black Flamingo. I read through it so quickly and then went back to it. And every single time it took me by surprise. It was gorgeously written. It was something that was entirely new, and I loved that. I recommend it 100% to absolutely everyone. It was completely outstanding. So the next book on this list is one I did a really, really long video on because I just absolutely adored it. I adore this author. Of course, it is The Tea Girl of Hummingbird Lane by Lisa C. This is a historical fiction novel about a girl, and it starts set in the 80s in the Shangri-La region of China, where they grow a lot of tea. And at first it's very, very, very rural, but eventually Westerners start to come into this village and start to westernize it. And it's essentially Li Yang's story through this entire process as she essentially becomes the tea girl of Hummingbird Lane. It was gorgeously written. It was immensely interesting. It was an absolute knockout. This is, if you like historical fiction, especially Asian literature, or anything having to do with, the Asian culture, she's just an incredible writer. She has a lot of different books on a lot of different aspects of different Asian cultures. This one about tea is just, I can't articulate how a novel about tea could be so interesting, but it 100% is. And the tea itself I actually thought was delicious. So check this out, and if you can, check out the tea. Next on this list is actually one that I do not have in physical copy. It's the only one on this list that I don't have in physical copy, but I heard it through Scribd, and I am so glad I did. It was such an amazing journey. It is Stamped: The Definitive History of Racism in America by Ibram X. Kendi. There's actually a couple different versions of this. There's a rap version, there's a young adult version. I heard this one, I believe it was not narrated by the author. It had a narrator. It was great. It was super informative, but very interesting, and told in all of these stories, I believe, were just kind of told in a different way that I personally hadn't experienced before. And I found it really rewarding, really, really interesting. Also just really eye-opening, and I kind of read it obviously at a really good time. Some things I knew, some things though were just so incredibly eye-opening and just so interesting. Everyone should honestly have at least check this book out. It's so worth it. And it is a textbook, and sometimes it can get a little bit dry, but overall it was a 100% 5-star read, and I enjoyed it so much. Okay, so next on this list is all of these books took me a really long time to read, so maybe those are the ones that I just savor a little bit more. But anyway, the next one is My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell. I haven't done a full video on this one yet, but I believe that is going to be coming soon. This is a story about a girl named Vanessa Y who has a relationship with a teacher at a boarding school, and it's the process of her coming to terms with this relationship that she feels at one point is just this great love story in her life, and coming to terms with the trauma and the realization that she was groomed and led into this relationship that was just very negative and unfortunate. And everything that she experiences through this journey is great. This was not particularly, the subject matter wasn't enjoyable to read, so it was somewhat difficult in that sense, but it's written beautifully. You can see I've marked this one up like crazy. This reading experience was amazing. So if you can get your hands on this one, I can't recommend it enough. I can't say enough good things about it. If you can, obviously huge trigger warnings for the actual, subject matter going on, but I found it a very, very, very beautiful read. So this is My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell. Finally, the last book on this list is another one that completely took me by surprise, and I'm so, so, so happy I read it. I can't say enough good things about it. It is Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. This is another YA book. So also, I don't know that, I don't know what it means to say that it reads like YA or not. This was well written. The only thing I would say about this one that would make it kind of YA-y is that the ending was very perfect in the best way though. So it just made me love it so much more. This is the story about a young trans boy named Yadriel and his brujo culture in East LA, where he basically ends up bringing a ghost into the world through a series of accidents that he then ends up having a romantic relationship with. It had an element that I completely didn't expect in the story. So I expected everything that I'd said in going into this story, and you get all of that, and it's wonderful. But the way that Aiden develops all the characters, that the writer develops all the characters, is just so pleasant to read, and there's an element in it that's somewhat of a mystery that I hadn't expected, but it makes it really interesting and really gripping. This was really, really great for children, adults. I really, really enjoyed it. I think this was a 5-star read for anyone that can get their hands on it. It was so much fun. It was completely different, and it was just a good story. So those are my 5 best books of 2020. I think for me, this was a really, really great reading year. I had overall a lot of really top-notch 5-star books. I actually had quite a bit of 5-star books, so I really had a lot to pick from. These, I think, were the absolute best that I read all year, and I think anyone that reads them will greatly, greatly enjoy them. Okay, so you are going to see quite a bit more videos from me pretty shortly. I'm doing my best and worst and most disappointing and most surprising books of the year. So stay tuned for all of those. They'll be coming out in the next couple days. All right, see you guys.